Now, each of us has a story to tell. Some of us probably have a few stories. Today we're featuring Jess Todfeld. Well, you may know he's a media trainer and a speaker and a presentation trainer. You may not know he has had some adventures along the way, on the road, in television, both in front and behind the camera. He even set a Guinness World Record. And he's going to speak to us today. Jess.
I will never forget my first grade teacher, Mrs. Messina. She looked at me and she said, "Jess, you speak too much." And now what I thought I was doing was, I was talking to my neighbors and I was mentoring them or coaching them. And she thought I should pay more attention to the person in front of the room, which was her. And what she ended up doing was, she said, I've had enough. She grabbed my desk and she pulled it across through the whole classroom, put it up against her desk, and said, "This is where you're going to sit for the first half of the year until you learn to stop talking so much." Well, I'm proud to say that I had the last laugh because I speak for a living. So Karen Jacobson asked me, she said, "Hey, we should talk at the luncheon. Come on, we'll do something fun." And I said, "Well, I'm going to come up and talk about media training and skills if everyone's relaxed." She said, "Talk about your journey." So I thought, okay, well, what does that mean? And there's that quote, it's the journey, not the destination. Exactly. What is that? The chord? Speaker 101. There we go. Yeah. The chord, the loose chord. Yes. So I said, okay, well, what kind of things have happened? What can I share? What are some things in my journey? And when I think back, even growing up, what we do here is not just speak. We run our businesses. It's learning how to be a business person. So when I was growing up, I was a paper boy. I shoveled snow. I mowed lawns. I had a lot of interesting odd jobs. I had my own little t-shirt business, selling to other kids. And very briefly, I was a candy salesman in the 7th grade. It was very, very brief. What I found out was other kids they would buy, say, a box of blow pops for $5, and then they would sell it and make $20 profit. My head was going to explode. I couldn't believe this much money you could make at once. So I went out and I bought probably about $30 worth of candy, and most of the kids would put it in a duffel bag, and they'd go to school and they'd, "Want some candy?" Want to like that drug dealers. The drug dealer, "I got candy for it. It's pure sugar, not the fake stuff." And I thought I'm going to do one better. What I'm going to do is I'm going to I had this big book, and I'm going to carve out the whole center of it. So I'm going to put candy in there, like go full Shawshank style on it. And I pulled it out and put the candy in, and I'm going to kids say, they go, "All right, I'm a businessman, this is going to be great." I made it to second period. Some kid tells the teacher, they march me right down to the principal's office, and the principal says, "You can't do this." And I said, "Why not? I'm, a young salesman." He said, "But you can't." "Oh, why?" You just can't. And you have detention. That was the end of that conversation. But what we shouldn't take away is it's all about staying in the game. It's all about pushing forward, and we all have our ups and downs. And when I went off to college, I guess I decided I studied film and television, and I figured I'm going to try to get a steady job, which of course is an oxymoron, we all know. No such thing. And I studied film and television. I got a job at this NBC cable channel called America's Talking, an all-talk show. I didn't realize until the last week when I was thinking about this. We're talking and speaking. An all-talk show channel. This was in the mid-'90s. And they put me on a gadget show, and we featured all these interesting gadgets, and I was on a late-night talk show, and they'd actually put me on the air, and I'd go out and interview celebrities and silly man on the street stuff the morning after New Year's, and drunk people out there, and it was a whole lot of fun. And I even got to shower with Janet Leigh from Psycho. That's kind of an odd thing. And I'll tell you about that, which is, we were having her on. We said, "Wouldn't it be funny, instead of just saying, 'Oh, you're on the show,' before our show opening, I'll say, 'Welcome,' and I'll bring you on over I'll bring you on over to our studio, and we'll open the door, and there'll be a shower there, and we'll have that same, angle, and then you'll go, ah! And she kind of made a face like this is the 1,000th time she's ever been asked to do that. So she said, all right, how about this? How about you pull the curtain? And I go, not again. And she did it, and it was a huge hit, and I'm like standing in the shower, and she said, you could tell your friends now that we shower together. And I said, that's weird, but I got you to that. Did I mention we didn't have clothes on? No, we had clothes on. That would be more creepy. So it was an interesting job, and like I said, security. I don't know, I'm having the most trouble with the mic. When I said security, one day I took this vacation and came back from the vacation, and they said, everyone's going into a room. What's happening? I don't know. They bring us in there and they said, Bill Gates has decided to invest $40 million in NBC. He wants to start a news channel. They're going to call it MS, like Microsoft, NBC. And they're telling us about it, and they said, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of all this stuff that you guys have been doing, and I'm starting to have this on-air career, and we're going to get rid of that, we're going to do this news thing, but don't worry, everybody has jobs. None of us had jobs, we were all fired. That was the end of the story. But it was okay, because the people who had started that channel said, okay, that's fine, we're going to go across town, and we're going to start another news channel, and they called it the Fox News Channel. Had no reputation for anything. They're like, we'll go over here. And they hired me the first time, and they said, well, we're hiring you again. Come on in. So I said, great. Do you have an entertainment show or something fun I could do? Yeah, no, we don't. Those spots are filled. But we can put you on this show with this cranky guy and got a big mouth, and no one knows who he is. It's Bill O'Reilly. So they put me on that show. And the funny thing about the crew that was the team that was his first team there, because he wasn't famous, because no one knew who he was, we just saw him as a character. You couldn't have written a better, you've seen him on TV, a better character, just pompous and, when we would sit in, so we were not afraid to talk back to him, but we would sit in a pitch meeting, and we'd all sit in a circle, and we'd pitch him a story, and he'd lean back in his chair, and we'd decide if something's good or not. Kind of rub his hand like this. I don't know what that's about. It's like the Dr. Evil type. But he was a good guy. He was always very good to me. But Todd Felt, give me the pitch, and he'd give it to him, and he'd say, I love that, the best pitch ever. And he'd give him the next one. I hate it. It's the worst thing I ever heard in my life. And the next one, I love it. It's the best pitch ever. Oh, that's the last one. All right, Tom. It's the worst I ever heard in my life. And then he said, all right, good. Nice to see everybody. And that's what he did on the air, and it was weird. You couldn't write something like that. I guess you could if you're Stephen Colbert. You can come up with that, and he does a very good job of that. But I think back at interesting, weird things that have happened. My job on that show was not really working with political guests; it was booking celebrities. And he had said, I'm a Long Island guy. I'm a Long Island guy too, by the way. And he said, Alec Baldwin. I want to get Alec Baldwin on the show. Call him up, ask him, beg him, whatever. And usually the handlers call back. But I get this voicemail one day, and I hear, beep, Jess, it's Alec Baldwin. Yeah, I got a call, you want me on the show? I will never go on the show. I hate it. This is the reason why I can't. People like him show up on my lawn. Why would you hit it? Then it cut off. Then nothing else. So I get beep, next message. Yeah, hi Jess, it's Alec Baldwin that, ran out of time, cut me off. I would never come back on! And it's exactly what he did. You're the worst thing! And then he ended, he goes, anyway, that's basically it. All right, have a nice day. And it was before we had iPhones, we recorded and, it'd be everywhere and social media and all that stuff. It was fun. It was a fun experience. And most of the time during the show, I would be in the green room. And, green room you hear on TV, it's all exciting. It's basically a fancy waiting room where you don't have to have a gown or anything like that. And the producers in there, their job is to make sure people are not in the bathroom when they should be on the air. Very glamorous. And one of the things I did to make it interesting is I'd ask people, oh, you're going to go out there, well, what are you going to say? And they start to tell me, and I'd say, great, oh, that last thing, you should lead with that. And they'd say, I should lead with that? Yeah. And what else? Oh, move this here, move that around here, do this now, go out and get them. And I had a political consultant who was watching me and said, hey, you know what you're doing? You're media training them. And I said, oh, I am? And it put me on the path to doing what I'm doing and being a speaker And in 2003, I still had my day job, but I started my business in December 2003. 2007, I left, started doing it. Of course, you know, the end of 2007, the bottom fell of the economy. But we're all here to say that we made it through our own personal, our own challenges that we went through during that. And along the way, as a speaker, it's we all encounter weird and interesting people. I thinking about a speech I gave to people who make steel, and telling them how to make that sound interesting. They believed it though, but it was helpful for them. But I got to go one of the times I got to go to a billionaire's house to train this woman. She was the wife of a billionaire. She wrote a book called The Kosher Billionaire's Cookbook. I know. And so they fly me out there. It's just outside of San Francisco, and I set up all my stuff in their living room, which is like the size of a gymnasium. This plus more. And the ceilings are high, and I get all my lights going, all that stuff, and she steps out for a minute, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm looking around at some of the artwork on the wall, and I see, Pablo Picasso, and Miro, and these enormous things, Jackson Pollock. Wow, this is crazy. How much money is in this room? It's servants walking around, all that. Flash forward a couple of years, I say, let's see what happened to that person, and Google them. Turns out the husband, not so much a billionaire, kind of a, what do you call it, Bernie Madoff. That's kind of the type that he turned out, he's in jail for 33 years. None of those paintings, it was in the article, were real. So it was everything was a big sham, except my training though. I hope that they liked that. She went on some shows, and she did a good job. So that was, weird things happen when you go out there. And I wanted to share, not all of them are great things. One of the first presentation training sessions that I did was for AIG Insurance, for this group of international CEOs, and they kept telling me, these are our most important people. They came from all over the world. And I know, okay, it'll be good. And I go and do it, and the morning went fine, everybody was happy, and they put out lunch, big buffet, they really did, no stops, all the silver trays, and I'm taking my chicken parm, and I'm putting it on my plate, and it slips off, and it hits the plate, and the red sauce splatters all over this region of my body. It was summer. I was wearing a light-colored suit, and it's red sauce. And I looked to see. Did anybody see that? No, nobody saw it. Oh, right before the break, I said, "And you have to be prepared for anything. You got to deal with anything." I don't know why I sounded like Jerry Seinfeld. You got to deal with it. And so I'm like, we're not supposed to be prepared. But what are you going to do about that? So I run to the restroom, and I scrub it with soap and water. This is how I scrub. And I get it out, but there's a big wet stain. That's no good as a speaker. How was he that day? We liked the content. I think he wet himself. So I'm like, what do I do? So a tip for all of you, should you happen to be completely wet over here for the next 2 hours, you shouldn't be holding things normally. I had a manila folder, and it might have been a newspaper. And all right, Tom, you're gonna be, come on over here, Tom. And I kept it right over there, and then it finally dried, and it was okay. Nobody had any idea until today what that was about. And just a last little story, which was brought up, the Guinness record. I never intended to do that. I think you got to be a part of a Guinness record the other day. And, I came out with a book, and it was a book about speaking, and the friend of mine who worked in publicity said, well, you're the media guy, you're going to do publicity, you better do it bigger than anybody else. And I said, all right, well, what does that mean? And he said, how about a Guinness record big? Okay, what are there records for what? I don't even know what we're talking about. So we looked it up. There's a record for, we're trying publicity, whatever. A record for most interviews given in a day on radio, because you can line one up after another. So that was an interesting experience, and completely took my eye off the business, because it took us, and I had a team that was helping me, it took us a couple of months to book it, but we did 112 interviews in a day. The hardest part was staying up, drinking coffee, and then running to the bathroom and get back. But it was an amazing experience and a great thing that I get to have on the bio, and people get to introduce me and say all those things. So for that, it was worth it. But when I look back on all these things and these experiences, I think back at always trying to figure out where I fit in or where we fit in. And I know Gene will tell you, I've been to other organizations. We've seen each other at other organizations trying to see, what's the right fit. And I'm happy to say, I've been very involved in SA, and sometimes I've backed off, and now I feel I'm much more involved, and it's really been the right fit. And I just want to thank everybody for, inviting me to be up here and for giving me the experience and having the great speakers that you had this year. Thank you.